and welcome back to Spin and Prog with me, Tara. And today, yes, today is the big one, lads. We are doing science fiction in Prog. Excellent. So, in our last video, we talked about psychedelia in Prog and how that movement kind of prompted people to experiment more, go mad with effects in the studio, etc. And that kind of leads into science fiction in Prog. How, you might ask? Well, let's get into it. So, Prog music mainly comes from England, right? And what were they showing on the TV in England back in the 60s and 70s? A lot of weird stuff. For example, in the 60s, you had like avant-garde television like The Prisoner, which was an odd show. Used to come on the TV in my house sometimes, like reruns obviously, and it was very frightening seeing him being chased by that giant bubble whenever he'd try and escape and stuff like that. But also we had shows like Doctor Who, which Pink Floyd sampled the theme of that for One of These Days. You had Space 1999, you had Quatermass, there was loads of stuff, all sorts being used. And, you know, the guys making the music were obviously watching this stuff. I don't know why I just picked up the pen. I'm not going to write anything. Jesus. So the guys are obviously being influenced by what they're consuming. Along with that, you had, like, movies. So what movie blew everyone's mind when it came out? It was in 1968. Sorry, I have my notes here. My messy writing that hasn't changed since I was in school. 1968, 2001 A Space Odyssey comes out by Stanley Kubrick and Alfred Hitchcock. That movie blew everyone's mind when it came out. Rightly so, it's incredible, absolutely amazing film. So I feel personally, like this is my own little analysis by the way, I feel like that really heavily influenced all of these bands we listen to now. Along with that, you had novelists like Arthur C. Clarke writing big science fiction stuff. Michael Moorcock, who of course ended up working with Hawkwind. There was just so much going on in media around science fiction. On the news, you had the Apollo 13 mission being shown. And that's going to have a big influence on little kids, you know? And of course you had crazy, like, kind of thriller, horror stuff as well, with that science fiction element, like A Clockwork Orange and Alien. Now, Alien, of course, is going to lead me into the first album I'm going to talk about, and that is Brain Salad Surgery by Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Now, who did they get to do the artwork? The man himself who designed the Alien, H.R. Geiger. Absolutely fantastic, the way it opens up. Here we go. The poster is going to fall out now, is it? There's Keith Emerson giving us a little eye. So, Brain Salad Surgery is about a post-apocalyptic carnival. Hence Carnival 9. A crazy, crazy concept album. And it's actually quite relevant now because, you know, AI ends up taking over in the end. Which is awesome to have come out with something like that. So when did Brain Salad Surgery come out? 1973. You know, and a lot of these albums I'm going to talk about came out in the 70s, apart from one of them. To come out with something so elaborate, and it's like a movie, you know. I don't understand why Brain Salad Surgery hasn't been made into a movie or something yet, because it's a crazy story, awesome concept. And yes, of course, the artwork has made it iconic, actually. You know, people recognise this immediately, which is why I posted this one in the community page yesterday to let you know this science fiction video was coming. Because when you think of science fiction in Prog, this just springs to mind immediately. So, Brain Salad Surgery. What else? So, in 1971, the Moody Blues come out with Every Good Boy Deserves Favour. The Moody Blues, science fiction was a big theme, I feel, in their core 7 albums, because like on the cover of On the Threshold of a Dream, you've got that robot hand, and the kind of progression of humanity as a whole and stuff, like into our children's children, etc. But Every Good Boy Deserves Favour, literally starts off with like this weird spaceship kind of sound, and it goes on about humanity, how it started, uh, up into present times, obviously 1971 at the time, and then into the future. And in my song, it actually, these guys really experimented in the studio big time. And you can hear this weird sound that Mike Pinder said was a spaceship because he had actually heard one himself somehow. Uh, and also, he put like in the studio, he put like a box or something over his head and had like the microphone up inside it and was breathing into it. And you can hear that in the song. And it's meant to be like an astronaut breathing in his helmet. I love that. I love when people just push boundaries and will do anything for the art. Like, so yes, Every Good Boy Deserves Favour by the Moody Blues, a fantastic example of science fiction in prog, and that was early, like to come out with something like that in 71. Very, very cool. So next I am going to hop, skip and jump over the pond from England to Canada, where I'm sitting. And of course, Rush came out with 2112 in 76. And, I talked earlier about stuff that the BBC was showing. But over here, what were they getting? They were getting stuff like Star Trek and Star Wars. They are literally dressed like Jedi on the back of this, and no one can tell me otherwise. That is 100% meant to be Jedi outfits. So 2112, another crazy story about science fiction themes, etc. Look at that hat on Alex Lifeson, isn't it lovely? This is one of the coolest albums ever released. It's probably one of the first Rush albums I ever heard, and I was hooked immediately. So what happens? It starts off with this crazy sound, spaceship sound, of course, like it's traveling through time or space. You have him waking up in the Temple of Syrinx. It's just, I'm finding it hard to talk about now because I'm getting overwhelmed with how good it is, but you all know it very well anyway. Fantastic album. They took, I really do feel like this is highly influenced by Star Wars, especially because of the sounds they used and the little story in there. It just reminds me of when in Star Wars they like land on a planet and come across all these creatures and stuff like that. So Rush, the Canadians were doing it right. And now what next? So I mentioned earlier about novelists having an influence on prog. And what did we get? We got, now a lot of people might say this isn't prog, but I think it's really proggy. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, which was influenced by H.G. Wells's novel. It has Justin Hayward, it has Phil in it, has, what's his name, Richard Burton, loads of people on it, tons of people. I can't, all the names aren't coming to me right now, but he made H.G. Wells's novel into a rock opera, pretty much, which I think is fantastic. Like, that was really cool. They tell the story so well. He didn't miss out on any key parts or anything, which can happen sometimes when you're turning something like that into a symphony. And another one, I feel like everyone has that in their record collection, anyone I've met that's into kind of proggy music or anything different has that one. So it was obviously a big one. I'd say it got a lot of radio play and stuff in certain parts of the world. Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds. I'm going to try and kind of make this quicker because my last video was too long. So what next? Hawkwind, Quark, Strangeness and Charm. Oh yes, one of my favourite Hawkwind albums. I absolutely adore that one. Came out in 77. This space theme that Hawkwind use pretty much in nearly every album, actually. I just adore it. It starts off straight out the gate with Spirit of the Age, that crazy kind of noise. I don't know what it's supposed to be. Could say it's a spaceship, could say it's some sort of machine. You know, they used the control room from Battersea Power Station on the cover with the synchroscopes and everything. So maybe it's meant to be that kind of sound or something. Yeah, fantastic album, Damnation Alley, that mad instrumental in the middle of the Forge of Vulcan, Fable of a Failed Race. Really, really awesome album. Cool stories thrown in there. Your Android replica is playing up again. It's no joke. Fantastic. Yeah, Robert Calvert's lyrics. Perfect. Okay, so what next? Oh, do I talk about the modern band yet? No, I'll leave them till the end. So, Alan Parsons, the Alan Parsons Project, of course, he did a album based on Isaac Asimov's novel I, Robot. And it is a fantastic album. You know, a lot of people put Alan Parsons in a kind of poppy box sometimes, because yeah, a lot of his work is poppy, and I will be honest, I'm not a fan of all his albums. Some of them I just can't get along with. But I, Robot is one of the ones that I love. I absolutely adore that album. He did a fantastic job of putting the story from the novel into the album. And yeah, experimentation again with sound, studio effects, all of that stuff. Fantastic. And of course, I wanted to include a band that I feel like aren't very known. I only discovered them myself recently enough. FM is their name. Another Canadian band, actually. And they came out with an album in '77 called Black Noise. And it's just science fiction all over the place. It actually opens with a song called Phasers on Stun, which is a Star Trek reference, you know. I was kind of reading about it a little bit to see what the reception was like for it at the time, and it just it was just unbelievably bad. Like, you know, even getting the record company to release it properly took them a long time, and no radio play, none of that. Which is, it's a running theme in Prog, isn't it? You know, you don't really get much popularity. But yeah, so FM Black Noise, fantastic one. References all over the place. Little bit of Timothy Leary scattered in there as well. Again, one that I only discovered recently enough, and I think it's brilliant. A fantastic album. Should be up there with the rest of the ones I've just talked about. So if you haven't heard it, go check it out. I'm sure loads of you are like, yeah, we know FM, Tara. Which is fine. I know I'm way behind, but I am 25 years old, so there's that. And now I'm going to talk about the more modern bands. So Coheed and Cambria. In 2012, they came out with a couple of albums called The Afterman. So there was Ascension and Descension. And all of their albums have science fiction themes, every one, because it's based off of a comic book that the frontman Claudio Sanchez writes called The Amory Wars. So each album is a continuation of the story. And the reason I went for The Afterman is because this one, I feel like he took that kind of spacey, science fiction-y stuff and really, really focused on that. You know, sometimes it can go off into kind of adventure, how would you say it? Adventure-y action kind of territory, and the science fiction stuff can be left out a little bit. But in The Afterman, it was just all over the place. Fantastic album. The way it opens even is real kind of scary science fiction theme. I think it's fantastic. The two of them, actually, the Ascension and Descension, brilliant stuff. Fantastic. So yeah, Coheed and Cambria, a band that I have fallen off the wagon with, actually. But I've been hearing a lot of their stuff, their recent stuff lately, and it's gone too pop punky for me, actually. I feel like that prog element is slowly kind of slipping out, but that's just me, you know. I could be totally off here, but you know, that's just how I feel. So anyway, again, this was all based off of one of my prog radio shows, which is on every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. You can just download the app from the App Store or the Play Store, or you can go to the website progradio.com to listen. And all of these shows I've done are on demand, so you can go back and listen to any of them. And I haven't pulled out even all of the stuff I played on the show. You know, that was, I think that was like a 3 hour long show. Whoops. Yeah, so I pulled out stuff from the radio show, and you know, I seem to have people commenting on these videos going, oh, you didn't talk about this or you didn't talk about that. I am just pulling out a small few examples to keep the video short enough. You know, if I pulled out every example I could think of, we'd be here for ages. So, you know, don't panic if I don't talk about something you like. Feel free to put it in the comments, of course. But, you know, don't be offended because I can't pull out everything. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know it's a bit of a short video, but the algorithm is very much giving me a hard time at the moment when I go over a certain amount of time. It's ridiculous. Like, YouTube just hate me. They hate all of us pretty much. But anyway, don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps me a lot. Of course, I always look forward to our little discussions in the comments. I really, really like chatting to you all about this stuff. It's great. Thank you for all the support and the love. You guys are fantastic. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.